welcome to the Hospitality Hotline. It is Thursday at 10 o'clock. My name is Catherine. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're talking about potlucks. And yesterday, you might have seen on Instagram, I threw out a kind of casting call for hit me up with your most horrific potluck stories, or the worst thing, or the craziest thing. And I offered, also tell me the best thing. I heard no best things, but man, did I collect some gems. So we're just gonna start by commiserating and laughing together over all these horror stories that I received. And then I'm gonna kind of address three things. I'm gonna talk about what the ideal potluck situation would look like. I'm gonna talk about what you should do if you are hosting a potluck, and then I'm going to talk about what you should do if you are participating in a potluck. And that's going to be how we're going to frame today. So let's start with the horror stories because they are the most fun. So the first one out of the gate, I laughed out loud. Sorry if this is a potty word in your home, whatever. My husband calls them pot sucks because there is never enough food, and that really made me laugh. Also, who is that person that always only brings a bag of grapes and a bag of carrot sticks? And also, bringing things that aren't cooked or don't have serving spoons or require anything from me as the host. Yes, all of those ring very true. Okay, so then there was the person that said 4 out of the 5 people included in the potluck, they all brought baked brie. Then there was the baked potato bar with wildly undercooked potatoes. Then there was the tacos with a side of Caesar salad and garlic bread. A themed potluck, and not everyone got the memo. Basically, everything turned out to be a dessert buffet with maybe some tortilla chips because Texas, which isn't that true at most Texas potlucks. It's just like a random bag of tortilla chips. Because I think we think that that's a side, but other states are like, okay, anyway. I'm not sure I'm okay with potlucks. Green Jell-O salad and suspicious casseroles. Yes. I asked an older teacher for her amazing pasta salad recipe. Turns out it was from the grocery store. This one, oh my God, this one. Cheese soup, straight from the Campbell's can, times 20, thrown into a crock pot to warm. So gross. I mean, so gross. So gross. Food poisoning from food left out too long. That's not even funny. I asked someone to bring wine. They were 20 minutes late and didn't bring wine and laughed it off. I have asked people to bring bread for a dinner party for 10 people. They literally brought 4 loaves from the grocery store still in the bag. I've been specific in asking people to bring all the things they need for their dish, including chips or crackers for an appetizer, only to have people I know and love and are thoughtful, kind, considerate humans ignore the request and say, I figured someone else would have some extra chips. I think the theme of all these is that potlucks have a way of turning really lovely humans into confusing, give-up versions of our best selves. And today, I'm gonna just dive in. I want to cast a vision for what a potluck can be, and I want to tell you, this kind of gets me fired up. It just does, and you should not be surprised by that. But let's talk about what the ideal potluck would look like. So the idea is not a bad one. The idea is fantastic, and the ideal potluck is when you as a host are able to delegate parts of the meal and trust the participants to show up with thoughtful contributions to round out your menu. It's a way to take this huge responsibility of feeding a group of people and divide it up among fully functioning adults and trust them to contribute to the whole, and then everybody gets to benefit from all the things. So originally, potlucks were a place where people, they brought their all, and it was almost a competition. Like, oh well, I'm not gonna let Franny outperform me. I'm gonna bring the best potato side dish, and then you kind of became known as the person that brings the potato side dish, and it became competitive. And most of the people that have really positive menus associated with potlucks are from a generation or two from where we are today. This used to be a very vibrant, thriving, communal, beautiful, well-executed way to feed a crowd, and now it has devolved into this pathetic, just, I don't even know what to call it. Sometimes it's more of a mess than anything. So what do you do? What do you do? The idea of a potluck is still a really good idea. It's strategic. It's one way to feed a lot of people without having to pay to feed a lot of people. It's a way to get people to be involved and contribute. So the idea is good. I think that the problem that we have is that we're not dealing in reality. So I'm going to start with a few reality reminders to get us all on the same page about where we actually are in relation to this idea instead of where we wish or hope that we would be. These are some realities, and y'all, I'm totally generalizing here, so don't get offended if you specifically don't associate with this. Some of these would apply to me, some of these would not. I'm telling you I'm generalizing, so hear me say I'm generalizing. But first reality, no one cooks. Cooking is the exception in our culture, not the norm. Most people don't cook in their own home kitchen. Now, if you cook in your home kitchen, I'm not speaking to you, so don't get upset. But most people today do not cook in their home kitchen anymore primarily. It's not the primary place where food gets produced. I mean, I have a business that's kind of centered on the fact that most people don't cook. We provide food to people who cook. Grocery stores now all have pickup food like areas. It's an anomaly, and people don't cook primarily in their home kitchens. So that's our reality. So to expect that when you invite people in that everyone's going to cook something from scratch in their home cooking, that's not reality, because very few people cook from scratch in their home kitchen. So keep that in mind. Second, no one has time. Time is in short supply. We're all super busy. We all have a lot of things going on. Very few people have just scads of extra time on their hands, and they're excited to spend several hours preparing a dish from scratch, even if they do or don't cook in their home kitchen. So time is in very short supply. Convenience is king or queen. Number 3, and I'm totally generalizing here, but no one cares anymore. There's no skin in the game about performing well at a potluck. People don't care. 50 or 60 years ago, the home kitchen used to be a place where some people found their pride and identity. It was it's where they spent all their time. It's where they spent all their energy. It's where they had their identity. And hear me say, I'm really thankful that this is no longer the assumed norm for women. That it's not assumed that because you're a woman, you spend all your time in the kitchen. I'm here for that. But also, we've lost the art. We've lost the art of knowing how to show up with something thoughtful and well-made for a potluck. So people don't care. Their reputation is not on the line. And in a sense, that's good. I'm glad that nobody's finding their identity based on what they bring to the potluck table. So hear me say that I think it's a good change, but it's also a change. And the fourth reality, this is pretty awful, but I'm going to put it out there. I'm not afraid to say it. I have found that most people abdicate any sense of responsibility that they should feel when they participate in a free-form potluck. They assume that everyone else is going to take up the slack, and they can just sort of eke by and be the exception. Okay, when you have 20 people that show up to something thinking they can eke by and be the exception and someone else will take up the slack, you end up with a table full of bags of carrots and no tortilla chips. It just becomes nobody's doing anything. So there's this giving up of caring and hoping that, well, everybody else will do a good job, so I'll just kind of do a meh job. Well, no, that's not the reality. The reality is everybody does a meh job. So these are the realities. No one cooks, there's no time, no one cares about performing well, and everybody assumes that they are the exception to the potluck rule. So given that that's our vision, given that those are the realities we're operating underneath, what am I supposed to do if I am hosting a potluck? Great question. Let's talk about it. I want you to hear me say, and I think we talked about this a little bit in the context 2 weeks ago when we did the hotline on hosting large groups in your home. Potlucks are a fantastic strategy. So I don't want you to hear today's hotline and think, well, we just shouldn't do potlucks. That's not what I'm saying. It's a great way to feed a lot of people and to share the responsibility of hosting and feeding large groups. But you are going to have to be directive. As part of the responsibility of hosting and spearheading a potluck is you are going to have to be directive. If that makes you uncomfortable from the get-go, this may not be the route for you, or you may need to grow and change, and that's an okay thing too. I think as the host, choosing the menu and setting out and maybe probably even providing kind of the anchor for the setting, the anchor of the menu, I think those are very reasonable places to start. So you decide, is this a barbecue? Is this a kind of holiday ham buffet? Is this a party food spread where everybody brings an appetizer? Is this a main dish salad situation and we're all good? You decide. You decide what you want the menu to be, and then you do your part to probably provide whatever the most obvious anchor part of the menu would be. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So if it's a barbecue and you're smoking meat, don't leave it open-ended. You need to tell people you want potato salad, baked beans, cornbread, whatever your barbecue situation is. And then you provide the meat. Don't leave it open-ended. So you've set the tone, you're providing the anchor, and then you're being directive and you're telling people specifically what you expect. I love the idea for the person that said the baked potato bar, but the potatoes were wildly undercooked. I love the idea of like the contributive, everybody's bringing ingredients toward the final product. So I've seen this, the baked potato bar is a great idea. I've seen this like a taco bar, fajita bar, where you're delegating the components of like tortillas and cheese and guacamole and sour cream and lettuce and tomato. Like those are tiny little pieces that are easy to delegate, and I love that strategy so that what people are contributing is very basic, very difficult to mess up. And the person that you ask to bring something like guacamole is the person that you know is going to make good guacamole. The person that, you know, has 4 small children and works full time and maybe their husband is out of town, let them bring the sour cream. You know what I mean? Like, you can choose who you want to ask to bring what. But I love the idea of contributing to a large dish. I would say, don't be afraid to ask specific people to bring specific things based on who you know them to be and what their strengths or weaknesses might be. Do not delegate to your friend who is always 20 minutes late the appetizer, because your appetizer is going to show up 20 minutes late. If you have a friend who really is good at baking, ask them to bring dessert. If you have someone that you know you can trust to bring like a really important side dish, don't be afraid to ask them, hey, do you remember that thing you made that one time? Would you please bring that again? That's a compliment. I would be flattered. I'd love to bring the corn dip I made that one time, or whatever. As the host, you also need to have in the back of your head, you may not have to pull from it, but in the back of your mind, you need to have a game plan for what you're gonna do if people cancel and things go wrong. Now, a couple weeks ago, three weeks ago, we hosted a very casual Super Bowl gathering with our small group from church, and our game plan was we're gonna smoke some meat, someone else is gonna smoke some meat, we're gonna provide dessert, and then we're gonna ask, I think there were 4 other couples involved, everybody bring a dip, because it's a Super Bowl party. It doesn't matter about the dip, as long as you tell us what you're bringing, we don't have 4 quesos, we're gonna be fine, we don't care. It really was very low stakes. One of our kids got sick, someone else got sick, someone else got sick. It ended up being one person smoking meat, one person bringing a dip, no, 2 people brought a dip. Most of our menu, like, didn't show up for very good reasons. I'm not upset about this. But we at the last minute realized like, ooh, this really fantastic football watching menu that we had is now kind of very bare bones. And at the last minute we threw together, there wasn't any queso. So we threw together some queso, we had cookies, we had the meat my husband was smoking, it was enough, and we had a couple other people bring their things. All that to say, have a game plan in the back of your mind for what are you gonna do if life happens and people have to cancel. You don't need to like plan an entire another menu, but if it really gets tight, do you have a jar of salsa you can open? Do you have an extra bag of chips? Just consider in your mind what you're gonna do if things go wrong at the last minute. Now, if you're hosting more of like a holiday dinner where you're gonna make like a tenderloin or a pork tenderloin or a ham or something, you can be very instructive and should be very specific about the quality and caliber of thing you expect. For example, I'm making beef tenderloin. Would you please bring a potato casserole? Would you please bring a green salad with a vinaigrette? Would you please bring 16 dinner rolls or whatever? Don't say bring a side. That's just so open-ended and people are gonna not know what to do with that. Be very directive based on what you want to see show up at your door if you choose to do this. I would want you to know that things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go wrong. People are probably not going to always meet your expectations, and that's okay. You're going to have to be flexible and open to disappointment. And for some people and personality types, this is easy. And to hear me say that, you're like, well, of course, that's how I operate. The rest of us who go into these things with certain expectations and certain desires to control and certain really strong feelings about a lot of things, for us, potlucks are really challenging. And for me personally, there was a time when like I didn't even want to do a potluck because I just hated how unpredictable it was. And I'm happy to say that potlucks have been a growth area for me. And now it's not always fantastic and it still bugs me, but it's okay. And I've stretched in that area. So if you're a person who, wants to control everything, you might see this as a growth opportunity. And if you need a sponsor in that, I'm here for you. Because, oh my gosh, there were just some really, really difficult years where, I would rather spend 3 days in the kitchen cooking than ask someone else to bring something to a meal that I couldn't control. So the fact that we had a Super Bowl gathering and I was kind of like, well, I guess we'll make some queso, like, that's growth for me. I'm telling you, this is growth. It's all good. So you can speak up, ask for what you need, be directive. Remember that clear is kind. So if you want red wine, don't look at someone and say, bring whatever. Tell them, I'd like you to bring red wine. I'd like you to bring 3 bottles of the same brand of Merlot for our dinner. Get specific, because I'll tell you what, that person that you asked to bring wine doesn't want to mess it up. So they find themselves in the wine aisle and they're like, I don't know, I guess maybe I'll bring this and this and this. But if you sent them to the wine aisle and they knew that you wanted 3 bottles of Merlot and you wanted all 3 to be the same, boom, I know what I'm looking for. Merlot, 3 bottles, I'm bringing it. You did it right and everybody's happy. So clear is kind. You're giving your people a gift when you choose to be kind and clear with them. Okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk about what to do if you're participating in a potluck. And this is a source of frustration for me, and I am not doing a very good job of hiding it. But I just want to look at all of you and say, if you are participating in a potluck, rise to the occasion. Show up in a meaningful way, and please don't abdicate your role in the bigger picture. Follow the guidelines for the love of Christmas. If someone says, bring a dip and please bring the crackers or chips needed for that dip, bring the crackers, bring the chips. Don't show up, I forgot. Don't do it. Follow the guidelines. Like, do what you're asked to do. In fact, do more than is asked of you. Think through every possible thing you can think through to make your dish as easy and stress-free and above the expectation as possible. Bring a serving dish. Bring a serving spoon. Do not slough off any of this work to someone else or what needs to be done once you get there. No, ma'am. Show up with something that is ready to go, ready to shine, ready to serve, fully thought through. like requires nothing of the person who is hosting this huge event for you and has asked you to participate. You be the winner of the potluck by showing up thoughtfully and considerately. Go above and beyond. Rise to the occasion. Someone is depending on you to contribute. You get to participate in 100% of the buffet, and you are only having to show up with 10% of it. Make your 10% as the best it can be. Don't make yourself the exception to the rule. Go above and beyond. We can do this. Let's get better at this. Okay. If you're bringing something to a potluck, don't ask yourself, what's the least I can do? Don't ask yourself, how can I shortcut this? Don't ask yourself, oh, how can I make this easy or fast or convenient? Things can be convenient and also be excellent. Things can be accessible and convenient. Things do not have to be made or cooked in your home kitchen for them to be excellent. I'm not telling you that you have to do something that you're not comfortable doing. I am telling you to think it through, think through excellent options. Don't wait till the last minute. And if you're asked to bring bread to a dinner party, do not go to the grocery store on your way to the dinner party and just grab bags of bread without doing anything to them, unless your host has specifically asked for that. Most people want some sort of like finished product, like you would serve if you were hosting people in your home. What kind of bread would you serve at a dinner party? If someone has asked you to bring something and life happens, and I get it, things happen, communicate. I am so sorry. We are going to be late because our babysitter just called and says she has the flu. I know that you asked us to bring wine. My husband is going to run it right over because I know you're depending on us for the wine. Like, think through, if you were hosting this party, what would you want to see happen? Now, I said this, it does not mean cooking from scratch necessarily. I am not expecting that we're gonna have a little chat about potlucks and everybody, I'm gonna change our number one reality, which is nobody cooks anymore. I get it, nobody cooks anymore. Goodness gracious, isn't it wonderful that we live in a time when you can find such high quality no-cook options at a variety of sources? It's true. Things can be assembled, things can be ordered, things can be purchased. You do not have to be an excellent home cook to show up to a potluck with something that is delicious. So, I want you to think about putting thought not only into checking the box of bringing the thing that you were supposed to bring, but seeing it through the eyes of the person who's hosting the event. How can your dish show up in the best, most finished way possible and be considered kind of a gift? Like, think of it as a gift you're giving your host, who is organizing this large gathering, feeding who knows how many people, coordinating all the people that are bringing the potluck. Like, how can you turn what you're bringing into a gift for them? It's a challenge. Keep in mind what it looks like to feed 20 or 30 people. Be thankful that you're not the one in charge of that. You get to just participate, and you get to enjoy all the things that everyone else is hopefully bringing by only showing up with one thing. Like, this is a gift. So make your part the best it can be. Hospitality is as much about being a thoughtful guest as it is about being a thoughtful host. And in that regard, when you are asked to participate in a potluck, do not see yourself as just one of hundreds of things that, may or may not matter. Consider yourself and the thing that you're bringing, even if it's just some sour cream for a taco bar. Like, what's the way I can make this the best? How can I create space in my little lane of participation that is thoughtful and caring and empathetic and will kind of be seen as going the extra mile and a way to say thank you for the person that's organizing this. In the case of the sour cream, showing up with 2 containers of sour cream is fine if that's what you've been asked to bring. Showing up with 2 containers of sour cream plus a bowl and a spoon to serve that in, it's a small gesture. It's tiny, but you thought through the whole thing. Like, it's those little details that really make or break. If you were bringing lettuce for a taco bar, that lettuce is already washed and shredded and in something that can just be put on the table as part of the bigger whole. Showing up with two, heads of iceberg and asking for a cutting board and a knife and access to the sink and a bowl, that's not thoughtful. That's stressful. That's stressful for your host. So follow the guidelines, do what you've been asked, own your lane of responsibility, and show up in the way that you can, that just your contribution becomes a gift. If everybody saw their contribution to a potluck as a gift, potlucks might be a lot more fun. Okay, the last thing I want to mention, it's not pleasant, but I do want to say the food poisoning issue at potlucks, the more you know, the more you know. There is a 4-hour time window for food before it begins to grow harmful bacteria. So that 4 hours is a combined total that the food has been out of refrigeration, meaning from the time you put it in your car coming home as an ingredient from the grocery store to the time that it was out of the refrigerator while you prepared the food in your home kitchen, the travel time to the potluck, and then the time that it was out on the table at the potluck. It's not just 4 hours of the finished dish out on the table of the potluck. It's 4 hours from the time it left the refrigerator at the grocery store to the time it goes in the trash at the end of the potluck. Most things have spent an hour or maybe 2 of combined exposed time by the time they reach the potluck table. So food poisoning doesn't happen in 30 minutes. Food poisoning doesn't even happen in an hour. 4 hours is the time window. So keep that in mind. And only you can prevent food poisoning. Okay, that's the end of potluck talk. I'm so glad you were here this week. I have a topic that on deck for next week, but I'm not going to announce it yet because I really want to make a guide about it, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. So if I can't, we're going to switch topics. But get excited. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see what it's going to be soon. And if you have any follow-up questions to anything we've talked about, I'm always happy to hear your feedback. Have a lovely day. See you next week.